Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. Hello everyone. And you know what? A special hello from whoever's watching in Sweden. That's dedication. I don't know what time it is in Sweden. I don't have that on my little sort of thing here. It's probably close to like 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. Anyway, Whiskey is my jam. Gary, HN, good to see you guys. Good to see some of the Tassie contingent tuning in tonight. I'll be in Tassie soon, actually. That's exciting. I'm going to be coming for the festival tasting. I don't know if that's been announced yet. Anyway, I'm going to be there for the festival tasting, which is going to be great guns to be back in Tassie. It's been too long. Hey, look, 11 a.m. I wasn't too far off. Look at that. I said 9 or 10. Look, being an hour out is pretty good considering how much things change, daylight savings change. And good morning from Gothenburg. I reckon I can take a guess who that is. And I'm an SMW ambassador in Sweden. I can't see who's saying that. It just says Facebook user because I think you have to let Facebook allow permissions or something for restream. But you know what? Good evening to everyone tuning in. Good evening, Joshua. Good to see you, mate. Josh is a relatively new member to the society, but no stranger to our quality of whiskies that we bottle. And tonight is, I'm going to put the caption back up on screen, a walkthrough May Outturn. It's a bit of a sort of a walkthrough video of what's on Outturn. I'm going to have a taste of one of the festival releases tonight. I just want to stress, I just want to start off and stress by saying this is not the festival walkthrough. If you have your Outturn digitally or otherwise, printed copy or digitally, there's only two ways you can read it. You'll see in there's the Festival Fever tasting, virtual tasting that's coming up. Now that one that's the actual full virtual tasting. Now that's an actual sort of walk through the whole 6 whiskeys, and that'll be for sale this Friday. The virtual tasting goes on sale this Friday. However, this is a bit of a preview, if you like, a walkthrough the actual what's the word for it? Just the actual Outturn. So this is a walk through the Outturn, going through some of the elements of Outturn and discussing them, taking your questions live as we go through. Sorry, I've got a bit of hiccups or something going on. That'd be embarrassing. Yes, yes, the Tassie has red carpet ready for your arrival at the border, Matt. Thank you very much, Mark. Hey, Matt, how's it going? Hope the trip went well. Daz, mate, the trip was amazing. I'm only just back now. That's why, I haven't done a live stream in a couple of weeks. But it was amazing, and I really appreciate you asking. So much to learn about what's happening at the society, but also great to get over to Glenkinchie, get over to Hollywood Distillery, get over to a few places. And learn a lot about what's going on at those distilleries as well. So it's been great. Okay, so let's dig into it. I'm going to make myself small face here. Bear with me. There we go. So this is, of course, the cover for Outturn. It is our digital Outturn. I'm just going to go through a couple of things to do with Outturn. It is a festival month. You can read about the festival fever. Pardon me. That's going on at the moment. This month, let me just clarify what's going on. It's festival month. It's Whiskey Festival month in Scotland. If you're in Scotland in May, which unfortunately I'm not, it's Speyside Festival, it's Campbelltown Festival, it's Islay Festival, and more recently Highland Whiskey Festival and Lowland Whiskey Festival, which all take place in Scotland throughout the month of May. They make careful not to overlap with each other so that you can actually go to all of them. They overlap maybe by a day, one of them or something, and then it sort of finishes with the Islay Festival, Fashiel Islay Festival at the end. And that's the one that sort of starts at the end of May and sort of just drags into the beginning of June a little bit. But look, they're all across May, the festivals. I love the text. I bet you loved Glenn Kinsey. Oh, have you got the text on? Have you? Yeah, if I say it like this, see how it comes out this time. Ready? Glenn Kinchy. There we go. I said it a bit more deliberately. Big boy. Yes. What's going on? Matt Wooler, the big boy's in the house. Here he is. Yeah, look, it's festival month across May at the moment. It's a big month for whiskey festivals across Scotland, and we get to celebrate them by bringing those festivals to you in Australia. So we've actually got all the bottlings here. So I've written about that in Festival Fever here. Andrew wrote a great article about the dilemma and dramas of drams in demand. Try saying that after a dram or two. This is all about the issues involved with flipping bottles and things like that, and why the secondary market has somewhat corrupted the primary market. Well worth touching on, well worth discussing. It's a point that has been sort of ruminating a lot lately. So well worth that discussion, I guess. The cat is back. Of course, we then introduced 26.173, galloping through lush meadows. It's a Highland 8-year-old first fill ex-bourbon barrel for our malt of the month. Malt of the month is something you'll get to offer up around for members at a great price and enjoy with you guys. Now, here's where it really gets interesting. This is the Society Experiences this month around May. Now, this is always subject to change because more are added, but we have to go to print at some stage. So I won't be able to zoom in on this just yet, but we've got Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Hobart, Brisbane, and Perth. And now, as of today, Canberra. All of those 7 cities are hosting a full festival experience for members. So I encourage you to get along. Unfortunately, Sydney has well and truly sold out. So has Melbourne. Tassie's about to sell out. So is Brisbane. And Perth has just gone on sale, so you can jump in on that. Some of them are at the end of this month, so you've got a bit of time, but I recommend booking in early for these kind of things. And Canberra just went on sale today. So lots going on around for the Festival Bottlings, and I'll show you those bottlings in just a moment because this is all about the Flavor Hunters Festival, as we're calling it. And there's each weekly release for each of these bottlings just there on the screen. So week 1, we're celebrating the Highland Festival, as along with the rest of Outturn. Week 2, we'll be releasing the Speyside bottling and the Lowland bottling. And then week 3, we're releasing the Campbelltown bottling. And then week 4, the 2 Isla Festival bottlings, which coincides with the dates that you see for the festivals. Yeah. And great comment here. Someone saying I've learned to read. I've learned that I need to read Outturn quicker so I don't keep missing out. We send out Outturn exactly a week before. It gives you a full week to read them. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think 7 days ahead of the release of these bottlings is pretty reasonable. So there we go. Only 9 tickets left for the Hobart one. Yes, 9 left is pretty good. That means we're going to have a pretty full house, even if it's 9 left, which is great. So great to hear that there's been so much enthusiasm for the Tassie event coming up in realistically, a week and a half, which is great. So I'm I will be there, which is going to be really exciting. So I'll get to co-host that with Tom. However, as I said before, when I started this tasting, this is not all about the, I'm not tasting through the Festival Casks in this video, so don't be disappointed. I am just merely talking about what's happening in May Outturn, including the Festival Fever virtual tasting, which you can see on your screen right here. This is the full virtual of all 6 virtual whiskies. I don't mean to brag here, but I'm going to, so I'll just bring myself up for this one. Even the UK tasting pack only has 5 of them. We're doing all 6, including the Festival Release 3, which is going to be very popular so on the ballot. So, yes. So Suj asks, will we get to taste all the Festival bottlings at the dinner? Yes. Every single Festival bottling, all 6 of them are at all of those 7 festival events. So if you're living in Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Perth, Brisbane, Hobart, you are going to be able to come along. Did I say Adelaide? Adelaide as well, sorry. You're going to be able to come along and taste all of those 6 festival bottlings. We're not holding any back for these events. That's the full lineup. The lineup is revealed. So, and Wooler says, now, read later. Yeah, that also works. Okay, so this is the festival tasting. Now, there they are in all their glory. I'll make that bit bigger. You can see it again. There they are in all their glory. These are the festival bottlings, all 6 of them. Now, there's other ways to taste them, of course. We have a great partner by Whisky and Element. Big shout out to them. I was working there today. Now, if you have you can taste all 6 of those at the bar at the moment. We've done something a bit different this year for the festival bottlings as well, which I want to talk about as we go through it. Yeah, hey mate, good to see you virtually now to win some pesky ballots. Yeah, look, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, I know there's some people who are huge fans of ballots. We get some messages and emails through from members saying how much they love the egalitarian, equal nature of the ballot system, and some who aren't that fond of it. It works both ways, and we've got to find a way to get around it. But it is what it is. Buy now, read later. Yeah, true. Well, yeah, referring to Outturn comment earlier. Yeah, so jump on what you want when you want it. Don't wait. That's what the point is. If there's a bottling in Outturn that you go, yeah, I really want that, like, get it first and then come back and read the Outturn later. Like, there's so many good articles in Outturn each month, including Andrew's that I just touched on before about bottle flipping, about secondary market. That's a really good read, and he's very articulate in his expression for it. And there's a great article that Adam's written, which I'll get to in just a moment. But there they are in all their glory, all 6 of the festival bottlings. And like I say, the Isla Festival ones are the ones we'll finish with fruity time travel and throw the cork away, which we'll see coming up in weeks to come, which is really exciting. But the first ballot is for the Highland Whisky Festival, the rare release 19. And I just want to show that there are members who are going around already pouring their releases, like a staff member, I should say, in Europe, who's already poured that bottle as they're starting to celebrate the journey already in May. That glass is a little bit dirty. Anyway, it'll work. I'm going to pour a dram now of rare release Distillery 36, a reward for patience. The one that's on the screen right now, I'm going to pour a dram of that to enjoy whilst I have this stream with you, and we can have a chat about it. Let me bring this up so you can see it. Well, there's rare release 19. That's this Friday. That's the Distillery 19 rare release. It's an 18-year-old spicy and dry Highland Festival bottling. 1,128 bottles worldwide. That's it. Now we've got 30,000 members, and we've got just over 1,000 bottles of this. Thankfully, we've done pretty well. We've got 42 of that allocation to go around. And you know what? I love this style of whiskey. I love this style. I'm going in the palate for this one. This is like that sort of sweet, bubblegummy, nutty, hazelnut kind of aromas that you get out of quite a savory Highland whiskey, which is absolutely my jam. So, but what I'm here to talk about just for this particular video is a bit of a preview of Distillery 36 rare release here that I've got in the glass, a reward for patience. And I want to talk about what we've done for the bottling scheme for the how we've structured these releases this year. I'm just going to grab some of the comments in between, however. Let's have a look. Praculio says, we need more allocation, Matt. The members are growing fast. Members are growing fast. They're growing fast across the world. We do need more allocation on some things sometimes. That's true. But you know what? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I've just been over in Scotland, and we do absolutely punch above our weight when it comes to what we get in Australia branch. And I can promise you that branches like Australia and the US and whatnot are always selected for goodies before the UK. We really do get the cream of the crop, and it's some great bottlings. We do need to sometimes get more of them. That's true. But $269 for an 18-year-old. It's a smashing price. It is. You know what? I'd really appreciate you saying that, Matt, because this is like, let's just go back to that slide. Here you go. Hazelnut bubblegum. It's a rare release. It's a festival bottling. It's an 18-year-old. It's all first fill ex-bourbon barrels for this one. And for $269 for a 18-year-old festival bottling, I think is very attractive. I think that's a really good price. And yeah, very attractive price. And even this one, it's a 10-year-old, $199. And it's full, like it's very, very sherried. Straight away on the color, it's sherried. On the flavor profile, it's deep, rich, and dried fruits. Yeah, proper pour. That's a good 30 mil, 30, maybe 35 mil. No, probably that's actually, I can eyeball 30 pretty good. It's probably bang on 30 mils there. The bottle looks 7/8 empty already. It actually is. Melbourne members got a stab at this particular bottling for an event. There's about, I'd say about 1/8 left in the bottle for an event just recently. So it was a bit of a sort of a preview because of stock situation, but I won't go into that. It's not very useful. How many members does Australia have? A few thousand. I won't say the exact number, but it's a few. We do well. We do very well, and members love what we do. Proper pour. Yeah, absolutely. That was delicious and remarkably balanced. Are you talking about the 36 or the 19 there, Josh? Either way, I'm going to talk about this 36 for a moment. Deep, rich, and dried fruits. I've got it up on screen. A reward for patience. Now, you'll notice for these festival bottlings, I have not said the words single cask. They are not single cask. What they are is a careful process of working directly with some cooperages and our blenders, Ewan Campbell and the team, on building an amazing whiskey. Now, they are single malts. They are entirely single malts. This is entirely from Distillery 36. So, Distillery 36, an absolute gem of the Speyside region, an underrated distillery of the Speyside region, if you ask me. And what's happened with this release is it was matured. It was a few casks that were maturing in refill bourbon hogsheads, which were then transferred to ex Oloroso, predominantly quarter casks, which were then, after a couple of years in the quarter casks, re-racked back into ex-bourbon, those ex-bourbon barrels again, just for marrying, just to get that spirit marrying again back into those casks. So it had a period in sherry and then a period back in bourbon. Now, what that's done is it's created a whiskey that, in my opinion, is quite sort of like complex and interesting and multi-layered, multifaceted, and good to share around. And it's also, by the way, this process of blending, vatting, and creating these releases took, I think, from, don't quote me on this, but it was somewhere over the, like, somewhere between 3 and 4 years. Think about that for a second. Like, these releases started being worked on for this year about 4 years ago. So, yes, single cask is predominantly what we do. And that's still, by the way, single cask is like 99% of what we do. But this is an opportunity to show off the skill of Ewan and his creation and show off what they've built here. Yeah, the 36. Yeah, absolutely. Keenan asks, are all of these rare releases all vatted malts? Yes, all 6 are a collection of casks from one distillery that we've worked closely with. And I'm going to talk a bit more at this 36 to give you an example of the detail that's gone into here. You'll see in Outturn, not just yet, but you'll see in Outturn on an article coming up on our website about the cooperage Tavasa, the sherry house Tavasa in Jerez in Spain that we worked closely with on sourcing really bespoke wood to mature this release in. So we've gone to the effort of actually building this release with the cooperage and saying, how will this wood work and what are we going to do with it? This is a far cry from sort of how some independent bottlers do things and say, oh, we're going to quickly, bunch this together and so hope for the best. And can we get some more next year? No, that was a one-off. This is all about relationship. This is all about building these casks with these distilleries and these cooperages, especially. Wouldn't it be great to taste all the festival bottlings all together? Luckily, if you live in a city that Scott Mansfield is your state manager, you can. Isn't that exciting? Multi-cask, yeah, multi-cask, multi-pass. Multi-pass. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons behind it, Kenan. They do this so they could share more around, so they could experience it together, so that we could actually have this opportunity to show off the skill of Ewan. And what he does in terms of what him and the panel do in terms of picking single casks is one thing, but but then going all the way over and actually working back and forth between Spain and Scotland in terms of cask and spirit supply is another. That's like, we're talking procured spirit and procured cask and vatting and expert blending. But it is still single malt. It is, so blending is a bit of a sort of a misnomer in this example. Proculio asks, assuming it's cask strength always, mate. It is cask strength, 57.6% natural cask strength. That's what it came out of. Better copyright trademark multi-cask. Yeah, there might be yeah. Hit your trademark office up now before someone in Australia who wants to buy all the trademarks scoops it up on you. Here we go. I've been asked again. How's our female membership going? We have one of the highest. I have to go back through our stats at the moment. I don't have all of our membership data in front of me because I'm hosting this video, but it's very high in Australia, the percentage. And it's I like the fact that men and women across the country want to be involved with what we're doing. Legally multi-cask. Thumbs up from Proculio. Yeah, look, there's a lot going on. Okay, question here from any idea how long it was in bourbon on this for the second time, Matt? Just a quick marrying or more of an intermediate sandwich maturation. So I think it was in it's a 10-year-old, and I think it was in ex-bourbon for about 3 years. Ex-bourbon for about 6.5, 7 years. Sorry. And then in sherry for about 2.5, 3, and then 6 months just to marry again. So it's sort of, bourbon, sherry, and then a tiny bit more into the ex-bourbon again, those ex-bourbon casks again to marry them together. I think really, I mean, ignoring some of the details about the casks just for a second, and I love nerding out with that kind of detail, but let's just let the spirit speak for itself for a moment and just examine how good these releases are and why they've been picked for festival releases. This is not your usual sherried whiskey. Straight off the bat, this is not your usual, like when you think of sherried whiskey, you often think of those, Christmas fruitcake and prunes and really thick sort of grapey kind of thick sherry molasses notes. That's fun sometimes. It's not really my cup of tea, I'll be honest. I often find those kind of big, overbearing sherried whiskeys we get, or that anyone bottles, sometimes a little bit sort of like, I may as well just drink a sherry. I think I've ranted about this before. I mean, it's like there's times where it could have been a sherry. You may as well just drink sherry. But in this case, it's much more subtle. It's not as sweet as I was expecting either. It's far more. It's got a little bit more of that sort of savory note going on, like a little bit of oatmeal on the nose. Brown toast is a good one. Tea biscuits is the other one I'm thinking of, like a sort of like milk arrowroot biscuit. Like tea leaves and biscuity, and it's still sweet. I mean, it's obviously sherried. It's got that sherry note to it, but it's almost Armagnac-y. It's a bit like Armagnac on the palate. That's lovely. Good evening to Mr. Finnegan, Mr. 45 Finn. If you're not following 45 Finn on Instagram, I might ask you, what are you doing? This guy is an absolute flavor adventurer. So good to see you, Jim. For those who've just tuned in, it is a walkthrough May Outturn. There it is. It's a chance for us to sit down and have a look at what's going on in Outturn whilst I'm having a bit of a dram of a reward for patience here. I really appreciate you tuning in just to have a chat. As you can see, the cask type in that Outturn page does say first fill Oloroso quarter casks and second fill bourbon barrels. Bourbon, sherry, and then a slight remarrying in bourbon again. 10 years old, 57.6 natural cask strength. It is robust, this one. It's biscuity, it's herbal. It's very enjoyable. There's a note in there that says the neat palate opened with plum and nectarine stewing in Armagnac. That's a really good word for it. That's a really good tasting note. That's exactly what I'm getting. That sort of plums in Armagnac, but it's not that sort of straight away like Christmas cake sherried whiskey. It's not like some of the 24s we've seen through recently, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's quite good. Great tasting note here from Suj that says it's sweet on the nose and buttery and savory on the palate. Yeah, that's a good call. Did you try this at Whiskey and Almond already? Because I don't know where else it would have been seen yet, but it's wow. There's just a tiny bit of sort of nuttiness, like there's sort of like sunflower seeds and like crushed seeds and crushed nuts. Fig paste, plum wine, maple syrup. Maple syrup I get on the finish. I get kind of a maple note in the finish. It's a very lovely sherried whiskey. It's exactly what you want out of a complex sherried whiskey. Now, if you're one of those people that just like sherried whiskeys for being big, straight down the line, monosyllabic sherried whiskey. Yeah, and I'm not going to name names or distilleries or bottlings, but you know the ones I mean, where they're just like, you taste it and you know, you go, it's big, just big sherry. Cool. Like it's great, but it's just big sherry. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Drams and Blues. Yeah, of course. Sorry. This was the one that made the appearance, which is why I've got a smidge of a bottle left in the office. This was one of the ones that made an appearance. It was. That was good. Yeah, it was good. Great question here from Praculio. Is the ethos of the festival to represent each region generally or to showcase what the region can produce? I think it's a bit of column A, column B. It's often been a festival of that style of whiskey from that region and a sort of a festival to sort of celebrate what that region is good at making. And it's like, regionality in whiskey does play a role in flavor. I don't believe it's the strongest element of what you can produce. It's not the strongest determiner of flavor by any means. It just as you can have a peated Highlander, you can have an unpeated Islay whiskey, that kind of thing. So it messes with the formula a bit, but it's important. Yeah. Keenan dropping the bombs. Rhymes with Glenn Gronak. Glenn Gronak. Yeah. I try saying that. I try to say that one out loud. I do. It was look, there's some great whiskey out of Glenn Gronak. And another distillery that starts with A and another one that starts with M. and I'm often in the mood for a good sherried whiskey. Don't get me wrong. This is exactly what I'm sometimes in the mood for. This one is a great sherried whiskey. It's just much more of that. It has much more of that sort of other things going on. And by that, I mean in a really good way. That sort of like sticky malt loaf and milk arrowroot biscuit thing going on, as well as having a good balance of sherry and a good balance of spirit. It's the spirit of Speyside Festival after all. It's the spirit of Isla. It's the spirit of Campbelltown. We're celebrating those regions. You don't just want to taste cask. I wish this, you know what? Nope. As soon as I say that, I'm going to start my rant. Okay. Yeah, James and Blues, of course. Sorry, I'm just going through some of these comments. Yep. So, yeah, look, like I said, this is a bit of a walk through the Outturn, so I'll keep walking whilst I'm enjoying this dram. Ballot drawn on the 13th of May for Reward for Patience, and on the same day, Lime and Thyme, Distillery 5 rare release. Distillery 5, very early for us in the society journey, the 5th distillery to ever join, and an 18-year-old again, $2.45, a little bit cheaper than even the Highland Festival 18-year-old, and it's all first fill ex-bourbon barrels, 18-year-old. I'm really looking forward to this release. I've not tasted this yet, but I will on the virtual, and I will at some of the events, of course, going around the country. But that's, I mean, look at those tasting notes there. You've got honeysuckle, melon, mango, buttered toast, sultanas, banana chips, and golden syrup. Ooh, that sounds fantastic. And I think some people will often look at Distillery 5 and go, I don't really care for Distillery 5. I think you're missing out on some great whiskey. If this was a 10-year-old at 40%, yeah, I'd say give it a miss. But if it's an 18-year-old at, 55.8%, and there's only 930 of these for the world, like, I don't know. I reckon this is really exciting. There's not many of this one to go around. So, but then of course we've got Distillery 93 rare release. Changes faster than a chameleon. This is a particular favorite of some of the team at Whiskey and Helmet. They really like this one. This one's drawn on the 20th of May, so the following Friday. Has notes of aniseed, Himalayan salt, lemongrass essential oils, seaside swimming pools, Mary Rose sauce. I don't know what that is. And salted caramel, lime chocolate. That sounds amazing. And then we've got the 2 Isla releases, which are coming up, of course, on the last week. Rant on. No, you can't make me. And then 47 was written here. 46.101 sounds like a very old-fashioned style. Tempting, great notes. Look forward to trying this one. Yeah, I love that sort of old-style whiskey. Yeah, Distillery 3 rare release here, which is Distillery 3. Now, Distillery 3 is basically a cult-like following these days, for good reason. It's fantastic spirit. It's probably my Distillery 3 and Distillery 23 are probably my 2 favorite Isla whiskeys, I'll be honest. But it's hard to then exclude things like 53s and 33s and 127s and things. Anyway, look, there's a lot going on out there in whiskey, but like, you know, cool. And then Distillery 53 rare release, throw the cork away. 156 of these to go around. So no one's missing out, hopefully, on this one. This is predominantly first fill American oak Oloroso hogsheads. It's a sherried 8-year-old peated whiskey from Distillery 53. Throw the cork away is a reference to the fact that once you open this one and you're sharing it with some friends, that's it. It's gone. It's just gone. Like, share it around. That's the whole idea with whiskey. This is going to be one to share around. Really looking forward to this one. A sweet, salty, smoky 53. Can't go wrong with that. Nice, rich, sherried 53. Those are the festival releases. And then, of course, the Outturn finishes with Adam, our newest staff member, recounting the Whisky Champs. He's only been with us for about 5 months, and already he said he's got the opportunity to experience an AMWTC. So Australian Malt Whisky Tasting Championship was just last month in Sydney. And yeah, a great night. I think I'm still recovering, but great night. And just great to see. There's the winner, by the way. It's Andrew on the right, presenting the winning trophy to Seamus Carroll, first prize winner of AMWTC. And Seamus, if you're watching this, if you're not watching this, that's fine. But if you are, bloody congratulations. 8 out of 8 he got. 8 out of 8. That's never happened, I think, in the Champs history. We haven't really kept great record keeping in the past of the scores of the winners. We've got sort of a list of who's won in the past. But I want to also just huge shout out to second and third prizes were Alex Uziello, who won second prize, and Simon Cook, who won third. It takes and of course, runner-up prize was Vanessa Whitaker from Manly Spirits, who took out fourth prize there, the runner-up prize, which was a bottle very graciously donated from Tassie Independent Bottlers. But yeah, that was a cool night. That was a great night for the champs and a great night for whiskey in Australia. And to have Seamus win that was a lot of fun. But going back to where it was, I'll just scroll back to 36 here so you can have a chat about it. Let's have a look. Yeah, the perfect. This was the perfect marriage of sherry and peat. It's funny, actually. I was just writing up a release on a whiskey just before I went live on a review, and I was saying my comment was sort of along the lines of, I've had a lot of sherried whiskeys, a lot of great sherried whiskeys, and I've had a lot of great peated whiskeys, but I find it very rare for peat and sherry to meet so well in the middle. I always find that's a tricky tightrope. As in, like, they almost never sort of meet very nicely. They become a bit sort of unintegrated, and they taste a bit sort of like you taste some peated sherried whiskeys, and you go, imagine if this was an ex-bourbon barrel instead, and vice versa. You taste some, where you go, I wonder what it was like without the peat. But when they meet in the middle, like Sush has found here, it's just a lovely whiskey. And I've tasted Throw the Cork Away. We tasted that at the Blues night, and it's just sort of like that balance of rich sort of peat and sherry coming through, but neither overpowered the other, and that's uncommon. And but 53s are so as Scott Mansfield says here, 53s you've never had one that's disappointed. Yeah, exactly. Fairly new SMWS, someone writes here, do we receive many outturns from Distillery 23? The answer is no, we don't, but no one really does. They don't sell casks. Everything we get from Distillery 23 is almost just a blessing or an accidental opportunity, because they don't really sell casks. They very much keep it all in-house. You do see them from time to time. We've had like 2 in the last 2 years, so it's not many. We've had on average, 1 a year for the last few years. And they're always quite old. The ones we've been getting are all between sort of 23 and 28 years of age. And that old 23s are sublime spirit, but they are far and few between. We have something coming through from 23 later in the year, but it's not technically 23. It's technically something else. But anyway, not at the moment. Like, no, I mean, the relationships change. Whiskey is all about relationships and people, and things change over time. So don't hold your breath for it. But if you like great peated whiskies, keep an eye out for all the other peated profiles. And that doesn't mean being a code hunter. That means keeping an eye on the flavor profiles. If you like things that are peated, have a look in Outturn, for instance, and have a look under the peated column. You've got 3 different ones to pick from just in May Outturn alone. The Distillery 3 rare release, the Distillery 53 rare release, and the Cask 137.10. If you haven't tried 137.10, you're missing out. That is an absolute ball breaker of a whiskey. Absolute massive whiskey. Adam is welcome to join us in Canberra as well. I assume that's you, Drew, and I'll invite him along, see how he's doing. He was not wearing a fez, though. He was not wearing a fez. Seamus won without a fez. Yeah, and better trademark that one there, Matt. Well, sheeted whiskey. So that's sherried and peated. You've got all the trademarks, though. You're doing really well. And someone asks, it's a 20-year-old PC, isn't it, Matt? I couldn't possibly say. I saw that post earlier today. That was good fun. Okay, here's a great question from someone who's quite new to the society, I'm guessing. How do we figure out which distillery is which number, or is it meant to be blind? If you Google it, if you Google SMWS codes, you'll get the cheat sheet. But I'm going to tell you right now, don't do it, or go as long as you can without doing it. And the reason for that is, the longer you can enjoy this whiskey, the longer you can enjoy the society casks without knowing the distilleries behind the codes, the more exciting it is. I promise you. You can start to explore flavor notes and flavor profiles and tasting notes and just pure flavor of the whiskey without going, oh, well, it's distillery Lafroig or something. And you say, well, it's got to taste like this then. You sort of have as soon as you know which distillery code it is, you immediately have a preconceived notion of what that cask should taste like. And if it's a single cask whiskey, which is predominantly of what we do, if it's single cask, then nothing is going to be what it should be. As in, like, it's going to be such a unique
proposition of that spirit, that distillate, that it doesn't matter what the code is. All that matters is what the flavor is. And that's so exciting. It is for me. I actually don't know the grain codes. For that, I'll give you, I know most of the codes off the top of my head these days, unfortunately, but I don't know the grain codes, and I never really remember them. I remember like 2 out of 16 of them, whatever it is. But I don't know the grain codes, and I'm kind of thankful I don't, because then every time I get a grain whiskey through, I'm like, okay, I want to taste this. I want to assess it for what it is. And anyway, in grain whiskey, we don't do that for grain whiskey for some reason, do we? We don't go, oh, yes, it's that code, so therefore I'm used to Strathclydes. How could you can't tell me what the distillate character of a Strathclyde is? No one can. Well, maybe the distillery manager can, but even he or she at the distillery would probably say it tastes like grain. But like this is what I'm saying. Like the longer you can not know the codes, the better. I hope that was a long-winded response to your question. You can Google them. There's like 5 or 6 or 10 websites out there that have the full code list. That's fine, but the longer you can go without being a code hunter and being a flavor hunter instead, I promise you your journey will be tenfold better. Yeah, okay, this is a great comment. The old SMWS blind tasting nights were a hoot. The guessing game was top notch. I loved those nights. We hosted a bunch of those in Sydney in 2018 and 19, and then a couple in Melbourne and Adelaide around those same years. One in Perth as well. This was they're great nights, and we'd love to do them again. Everything's just sort of warming up again, really, for us, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of like we're back into that sort of rhythm of let's do great events and explore flavors. And I think we'll do a few more blind tasting nights. It might turn some people off, but you know, I like the idea of having each tasting card in an envelope that you get to explore the whiskey. If you want to open that envelope and do the reveal, then you go for it. But if you don't want to, yeah, exactly. And Matt Willis says here, and then you realize you're wrong, and they never taste like the distillery. Exactly. And I mean, we've had a good example is we've had peated distillate. Sorry, not peated distillate. Let me rewind that. We recently had a peated whiskey from Distillery 35 that you don't usually see peated whiskey from. So would you have tasted that and gone, oh, yeah, well, I know I like 35s. So, yeah, well, it's not usually peated either. So how do you know that you liked it like that? Anyway, much enjoyment. Comment here. Much enjoyment is the amount of flavor variation for a given distillery. Exactly. The differences from retail offering is usually massive. If that distillery even has a retail offering, even more so. So it's like if you see from us a Society 48. I love our 48s, by the way. They're charry and meaty and worm tubby. They're lovely. They're all sort of complex and crystalline and almond sugars and baked sweets. They're lovely whiskeys. But, 48 does not have a core range. So even better in some ways. You get to go, well, I get to explore whiskey from a distillery that does not otherwise sell spirit. Great explanation on the codes. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris Weston. Thank you very much. Lots of comments coming in. Sorry. So comment here coming in from David Putty. He says, I've got many independent bottles from Distillery 23 and had most of their official bottling, and they're totally different whiskey in my opinion. They totally are. And that's kind of back to my point just a minute ago about the core range and even independent bottlings of a distillery code are often so far removed from what the society is doing in terms of our wood management, our spirit policy, our team, that it's just a different proposition entirely. So comparisons are often a bit daft, and it's like it's comparing apples to oranges in some cases. It doesn't make any sense. Or is that what's that? It's like writing about what's that Elvis Costello quote? It's like a ballet about architecture. I can't remember what he said. Anyway, I've now butchered a great quote. Yeah, gives a whiskey a fair chance. Yeah. If Tom had his way, all Tassie SMWS would be blind tastings. I'm guessing Tom's a huge fan. Tom Roth is our Tasmanian state manager for those playing along at home. He's maybe a huge fan of blind tastings at the society. He's our state manager. If he wants to host blind tastings, he can go for it. Prakuli asks, is there a partner bar in Sydney where we can try the festival bottlings? I did offer them up to a number of Sydney partner bars, none of which were able to take them up at this time. So I'm afraid probably not, but I recommend just grabbing one of the virtual packs this Friday and it'll get sent out to you as soon as possible. Question coming in from Jesse Morgan. Would you recommend for those who are attending an in-person tasting for the festivals to double up on the virtual tasting pack, or should these be reserved for those unable to make it? We've got plenty to go around, Jesse, plenty to go around. So entirely your call. It's very generous of you to suggest that maybe just hold out for the, make sure that those who have a stab at the virtual get a stab at those who can't go to the in-person ones. I know what you're asking. I just think that if you want both, do both. Like if you want to come to one of the in-person and come one of the virtual and grab the virtual as well, do so. It's entirely up to you. I think there's enough to go around. Happy to use my house from now on. Sure. Cheers to that. No, don't take that as a verbal yes, but you know what I mean. Yeah, sure. Great question coming in here, which is going to be a tricky one, I think. Talking about codes and peat, why are most distillery codes used for both peated and unpeated spirit from the same distillery? But 23 is separate to 127, and whatever octomore is, if Society of Bottlings of it exist. Okay, that's a good question. Okay, codes and peat. You'll notice that a distillery like Distillery 10, has peated and unpeated variants under the same code. You'll notice that for a few codes, actually, especially earlier codes. However, when distillate started running from Distillery 127, that was an opportunity for the Society to go, you know what, maybe we should split out a separate code if it's coming off a different still or if it's entirely a different distillate. Now, there was also an admission a while back about how, if we could go back and do things again, we'd probably split up distillates even more so into different codes than we currently do. You got to remember, Distillery 10 was probably around 1984, 85 was when our first bottlings were put out to the members. Like we're talking like 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago. So, the whole idea of splitting up between peated and unpeated in the coding system wasn't really a consideration. It wasn't. They didn't think they'd probably even last 5 years as a club. Let alone become, one of the most prominent around today. So this is not like a thing that was sort of back then of like, oh, well, should split them up. It's changing a bit now. I mean, we're seeing a few codes later in the series. 23 is an early code. That would have only been like, 1988 or something. That was an early code. However, 127 was much later because they didn't actually run 127s until 2001. And we didn't actually get any 01 spirit back in 01, I think. Well, I don't know if we did, but it was sort of like we weren't releasing in 01. I mean, the youngest spirit out of 127 would be sort of being bottled around 2008 or 9 or something, which would have been very, that's quite late in the game. That was only 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever. So my point is, it's yes. Some are split between peat and unpeat. Some examples like Loch Lomond Distillery, I'm going to say that name, we've got 5 codes for them because they have 5 different setups of runs of stills from column to pot to swan neck to straight neck to whatever. And that all are different distillate runs. This is a bit different, so there we go. Thank you, someone who just cleaned up my Elvis Costello butchering of a quote there. There it is. That's my point. That was my point before about, comparing to core range bottlings or comparing to other independent bottlings of things doesn't make any sense. 42 is also peated, unpeated, although 42s are predominantly peated. So, I just got a message from a friend of mine, a member, Alex Espinoza. Big shout out to you. You just sent me a message of you enjoying watching me on the screen whilst I'm on the screen. So, Alex, this is a shout out to you. Hope you're doing well, mate. And then other questions coming in, other comments coming in as well. This is why I enjoy the society. The whiskey is so different and so exciting. Yeah, this is why I enjoy the society. This is why I work here. This is why I love what I do. Because every time you open a different cask, every time you open a different bottling, you get to go, there's something in here I've never, ever tried. And when I get to present a masterclass or a tasting, I'm presenting a masterclass or tasting to a group, to an audience, to members that I will never, ever get to do that same lineup again. How exciting is that? It's always an adventure. It's always changing. It's your palate changes and your taste change and what you're looking for changes. That's exciting. Great question coming in here. With the cask, do you buy and age them in an S&WS location or buy casks that are already aged at the distillery? You know what? That's a really good question. It's predominantly the former, as in like we're mostly buying spirit from a distillery, aging it ourselves in our warehouses. We have thousands and thousands of casks maturing away, which are then go through different panel processes over years. Now, sometimes we get lucky and we get to buy some different mature stock from distilleries, and sometimes we'll play around with it for some years still to go. We might buy some 15-year-old stock that we go, well, might do really well as with another 5 years in ex-sherry or something, and that becomes a 20-year-old whiskey. So there's different points of maturation that are purchased at different times. It makes a lot more sense for us to buy younger spirit because then we're able to control the trajectory of that spirit in our wood, like we've done with this rare release of Reward for Patience release coming up this month, where it's wood that we've sourced directly from Tavasa Cooperage in Spain, and we're able to actually play around with that process and have our own wood policy. There we go. Hope that answers your question. A potential future for distillery codes. All codes are now literally coded, requiring a cipher that's hidden in the tasting notes. You know what? Actually, our spirits team would really like that. Don't mention that one. That's a really good idea, though, where we don't even print the codes anymore. They're sort of like hidden within a word cipher within all the tasting notes, and you just have to buy entirely off flavor. What if we did that for one Outturn? Maybe we do that for an Outturn when we just don't publish the codes for any of the releases and just go entirely off flavor. Or it's almost like a lucky dip, flavor lucky dip. The code hunters would be a bit upset by that one, maybe. Those who are like, oh, I really want this one. And they'll see maybe something with a 19-year-old deep, rich, and dried fruits, or 20-year-old spicy and dry or something, and be like, oh, I don't know what that is, but I want it. We've done blind tastings, like I said before. We've done blind virtual tastings as well. They are lots of fun as well. We might do another one of those coming up. We're still doing virtuals every month, by the way, folks. Even though everything's open back up, we're still doing virtuals every month. Just for those who don't live near any events that we do, maybe those who live a bit more rurally, those who can't get out as much, whatever the reason is, or even if you just enjoy doing them with us like I do, you get to enjoy them, so why not? Would the SMWS ever consider selling small seasoned casks which members could use to age their own blends at home? No, I don't think so, Jesse. There's a lot that we do. We do lots and lots of different projects and things and virtuals and tastings and casks and battered malts and blended malts and single malts and grains and bourbons and armagnacs and cognacs and everything that we do. However, I don't think that's something that we'd be really good at. I think we'll leave that to, there's sort of a lot of barrel brokers and things out there that will probably be able to do that much better than we could. We're really good at managing our own casks, but I think managing yours as well would be another step. It's not outside the realm of possibility, but I think it's not really entirely of our thing. Ciphers and vinyls. Like, oh, speaking of which, our vinyl slip mat's online now. Boo! There you go. Cool. Well, that's a bit of a look at Outturn coming up. I'll leave it there for now. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this a reward for patience. This rare release 36 coming up for the Speyside Festival on the 13th of May, when we'll release this bottling. This has been about 50 minutes or so, a walk through May Outturn, a walk through what's coming up this Friday. I'm glad you got to sit down and enjoy this with me, having a chat with me. I'm going to leave it there for now. It's Matt Bailey here, signing off for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. I really appreciate you coming along this ride. Like I say, join Andrew and I for the virtual tasting all 6 in the Festival Fever virtual tasting coming up, and that's on Wednesday, the 25th of May at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or watch at your own leisure afterwards. But there's only a handful of tickets left for Tassie, Brisbane, Canberra's just gone up, Perth's just gone up. So get cracking to these events, because most of them have sold out. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne have sold out. So there's a lot going on around the country. Howdy, Mark. You're about an hour late. That's okay. Mark, you can catch up on with us on this if you like. Cheers, Matt. Good fun. Thank you so much. Lots of smiley faces coming in. Thank you so much. Thanks, Praculio. That was some cool comments and some cool questions. I really appreciate it. Praculio asked cool questions. Yeah, come on. That was good. Come on. That's my okay, I've got nothing. All right, that's me done. I will see you all soon. Take care, safe dramming, and happy adventures. We'll see you all for May festivities coming up. Bye for now.